Ex-bullies of Reddit, what was your turning point? We picked on this boy in grades 4 to 5, who was a little different. We would say he smelt and such. Even made a game called Stinky Boy where we all ran away from him. The teacher made me sit with him for the year and I mocked him constantly. One day he invited me to his birthday. I was confused but still went. Turns out he thought I was his best friend and gave me one of 5 special sleepover invitations. He invited all of my friend group at the time, all of which made fun of him. I was the only kid out of our class of 30 he had invited to show up to this poor kid's birthday. He was so happy to see me. We played games all night and I had so much fun with him. Turns out the reason we thought he was smelly was because he had to wear the same pair of old cloths because his single father couldn't afford much else. Did I mention that his dad said to me that he had heard so much about me and how his son was so happy to have a friend like me? He even called my parents to tell them how happy he was that his son had finally found a friend. I hung out with him every snack time after that. Now in my final year of school I be sure to ask him what's up when I see him in the school as we grew apart and he finally found friends after I introduced him to some people. Looking back it makes me sad that kids can be so cruel. That poor kid. How sweet. I attended elementary, middle and a year of high school in an economically depressed working class town, where the mills had closed down and families were hanging on by threads, if at all. It was a nightmare, like living in a prison. Bullying was rampant through the entire culture. Even the teachers would bully kids in unspeakable ways. So yeah, to my shame, I also bullied kids, just as I was being bullied by others. When I moved away to a different city, where bullying was not part of the culture, I suddenly found that I had no desire to be mean to other kids. I no longer felt seeing people humiliated or afraid was funny or gratifying in any way, and not having to feel that way myself was absolutely liberating. In fact, I suddenly found it kind of repulsive on the rare occasion where I witnessed someone being bullied. I once saw a friend of mine bullying some nerdy kid, and actually found myself telling him to cut it out and leave him be, something I would never have done in my previous schools. I myself never bullied anyone again after I left that crap town. Years ago there was an experiment where a rat would be given an electrical shock periodically at random intervals. He would become terribly stressed out and miserable, and start behaving neurotically. Then, a new rat would be introduced to the cage, and the rat that had been shocked would suddenly attack the new rat with a bizarre ferocity. Now the new rat would be stressed out, miserable and neurotic, but the shocked rat would calm down and be just fine, as if all the pain and fear that had been imposed on him had simply been transferred to the new rat. I think once you understand this about rats, you come to understand a lot about people. I'm a freaking rat. In middle school, me and another girl hit off really well because we both shared a love for video games and anime, and we always stuck up for each other because we did get teased a little for our hobbies. Fast forward to high school, I started hanging out with a group of cool girls, and they always made fun of my friend. Because I was with them, I thought it was okay to do it too. So I also teased her and left her out in a lot of my activities. This continued on for 2 years, and in the middle of our junior year she sent me a text message that made me reconsider probably every single life decision I've made. Hey burp brain, I've known you for almost 5 years and have always considered you as my best friend. But I know people move on and drift. That being said, if you don't want to hang out with me anymore, I wish you told me to my face instead of visibly moving away from me and mocking me. I wish you all the best. I sat on that for weeks and weeks, and finally during senior year, I left that group of girls, who I later found were not so cool, and decided to apologize to my friend. I said I was an idiot and I was so concerned with high school popularity I threw away probably my most important friendships. It's been another 5 years since then, and she and I are still really close. It's one point in our lives we don't talk about because I'm still really ashamed about it, but I'm glad she's forgiven me and has become one of my most supportive friends today. This is beautiful. I've often reflected on this, especially recently going to therapy, which involves a lot of childhood stuff. Simple version is that bullying was endemic in my life all the way through. My brother bullied me. Our dad was horrible to him in particular. The neighbors were murderous shitbags who used to kill our pets. damage our property and make our lives heck at every opportunity. School was top-down bullying in which anyone weaker was fair game to be tormented. I found solace outdoors as much as possible on my own or working with adults at weekends and holidays. I used to enjoy fighting. I removed pain, remorse, caring, empathy or desire from my feelings. My joy was making people angry enough to attack me, then thump them a lot, as I really did not give a frick about anything or anyone. Except one friend called Clee. She got through my armor and I really lived for the tiny moments I shared with her on the bus ride home. One day as I had finished fighting some poor kids on my way to sit beside her, I sat down to her asking me why I did that. I left school at 15 with this ringing in my head. Left home as soon as I legally could at 16. Past a group of kids my own age who tried to intimidate me as I passed by on a route I knew I was going to be using regularly. Decided I was done with the whole bull's cycle of abusive behavior, so walked right up to the whole group of them and offered to fight them all. I laughed at them when they backed down, went on my way. Took me a good few years to stop fighting at the drop of a hat, but a few rushes with the law brought that into focus. Not to mention a few beatings. Low, zero, self-esteem, lack of role models and a misguided love of physical violence made me a total of from 11-15, but a kind word from someone I realized was my only true friend at the time gave me the impetus to begin to grow. Now I work with kids and try to drop in little nudges myself. I use positive reinforcement, praise and crap ton of patience, as well as being a good person to my colleagues for the pupils to see. So to Clee, wherever you are, I say a huge thank you. Clee, you the real MVP. I was a victim, not the bully, but I got to witness this moment. My elementary school didn't have a gym, so we'd walk a mile to the lake in the neighborhood to run laps, as it was almost a mile in circumference. Now, I had pretty bad asthma, which was often induced by exercise, and the school had a rule that all medication had to stay with a nurse on campus. My bully, let's call her Kat, started off with little things, like stabbing scissors through my pigtails into her desk so that when I tried to stand up, I would tear my hair out, or making fun of my being a Jew. It eventually advanced to the point where she would make openly anti-Semitic comments and write them up on the board. She would lock me in the bathroom by pushing a chair against the outside knob so I'd be stuck there until someone got me out. And at one point, she kicked my arm so hard that she caused severe damage to the muscle fibers, and I was in a sling for several months. One day, we had pay, and the teacher decided we would go run laps. So we went to the lake, and the teacher told us to run around the lake twice, and then we could be done for the day. Kat was the second slowest runner in class. I was the slowest. I finished one lap, and I felt ill. So I get halfway around the lake for my second lap. When my throat closes shut, I fell to my knees, gasping for air, trying to scream, but nothing comes out. I see Kat retreating, and I'm barely able to call out her name in a hoarse whisper. Somehow, she heard me, she saw me, and next thing I knew, she was carrying me, fireman style. A few minutes later, I heard the teacher screaming at her to stop, that she would fail, but Kat kept running. She ran 1.5 miles with me on her shoulder, and brought me to the school nurse. When the nurse refused to administer the inhaler because she wasn't sure, Kat grabbed it and helped me use it. My heart started beating really fast, as they had grabbed the wrong inhaler, but I could breathe. Kat saw that something was wrong, and gave me a phone to type in my phone number, and she spoke to my parents, telling them to come quick. They took me home, and I rested. Kat didn't ever come back to school, but she told me later that when she saw me there, something took over, and she had to help me. In that instant of seeing me helpless and alone, she was the only one who could save me, and she did. She apologized for everything, and thanked me for changing her life for the better. If she hadn't grabbed me and hauled butt, no one would have gotten to me in time. She saved my life, and that act changed her forever. Last I heard, she was training to be a firefighter. There's something very wrong and very beautiful when both the pay teacher and the nurse were so inept at the same time that your enemy saved your life. Thanks for sharing. I bullied this one boy and one girl when I was a kid. Don't know why really, I simply did. The boy was younger than me and I made him go home every time I saw him at the playground. If he wouldn't, I'd slap him around a bit until he did. The girl was my age and much bigger than me, but I was still the bully. I stopped bullying the boy on his first day of school, my first day of 3rd grade. He saw me in the schoolyard and immediately started crying and ran inside. That's when I realized he was actually afraid of me and the bullying stopped being funny. The girl got me off bullying for good. We were at a 7-day vacation out of town, and I tortured that poor girl for days. Called her names, pulled boards from under her mattress so she would fall, rubbed toothpaste on her hands while she was sleeping, all kinds of nasty crap. On the 5th day she finally had enough and just walked away. A 10-year-old kid walked away on her own into the woods. No one could find her the whole day. I actually got really scared that something would happen to her because of me. She finally appeared in the evening, alive and well. She was hiding nearby and watched us look for her the whole day. Only came out when she got hungry. I never bullied anyone mentally or physically ever again. I was one mean kid. I have a feeling this will hit close to home for some people. In grade school I was kind of a bully. I say kind of, because it was mostly just kid stuff and I wasn't vindictive about it like some of the kids in school were. But nonetheless I was not a stellar person. In about 6th or 7th grade, my mom got cancer. For a few years, it felt like nothing could ever go right for me, and it felt like it was never my fault. In high school, once most of these things had passed, and I was back to my normal semi-bullying ways, an older friend of mine, who I had confided in during the rough years, put it this way: you know that feeling when everything seems like it's going against you and you had no hand in causing it? That's what kids that get bullied constantly feel like. Why are they refused the right to enjoy their interests and do what they want? I was flabbergasted. For weeks I went around the high school apologizing to kids I had bullied because I felt like such a piece of crap. As someone who was bullied so much I had to eat lunch in the stalls and the bathroom for over a year, this thread has peed me off. There's a lot of I was and but because I was stupid then, but I eventually decided it was wrong, so everything's probably okay now. No, everything's not okay now. Some of us still carry the scars into adulthood because you were too stupid to realize the consequences of your actions. What are you doing now? Are you actively trying to dissuade bullying from happening when you have the chance? I sure hope so. There's also a lot of I became a bully to my bully and that bothers me. Because, see, no one had any freaking excuse to bully me. I did nothing. I sat in class and read. In gym class I was called a slimy, disgusting little worm by girls who had never spoken to me before. I was put in a small room throughout gym, alone, so they wouldn't bully me. They were mean, but the teachers isolated me. I loved rabbits and often read books about them, wore t-shirts with them, had a bag with a bunny on it, would draw them in class. This led to 2B concocting a story about finding a mother rabbit, slitting her belly and stringing her up in front of her babies. They laughed when I broke down. I was also passing by when a group of girls were sharing the story of Bloody Mary by a bathroom and challenging each other to go in with the lights off and say her name. I was just passing by. I got dragged in and they put their full weight on the door. They wouldn't let me out even after I panicked and screamed. I didn't have any friends to defend me. Some teachers did defend me. I didn't even think the word friend was real for years. Up until my late 20s I thought it was a lie. I am still not able to trust people, for the most part, because even though I am kind, people will eventually either be mean to me or get close to me and decide it's okay to emotionally abuse me, that I'm not worth being kind to. My good behavior, which should logically get good behavior in return, doesn't. That's fricked up. People who hurt people unprovoked are fricked up. My abilities, my compassion, none of it matters. You make people feel like they don't matter. You are weak if you bully. Do you understand that? Anyone can hurt anyone. Anyone can break something or hit something. It takes no skill. Building people up, holding them when they cry, making time for them, nurturing them. That is strength. Not everyone can do that. My tormentors realized exactly how much it was bothering me. Every single one of them. That is why they did it. So I suspect a lot of you aren't being completely honest when you say you didn't understand the consequences, or only bullied your bully. And that is disgusting. I suspect I'm going to be downvoted. It happens sometimes when I talk about how much I am hurting. Let me just point out that downvotes don't help. They don't soothe anyone. they don't resolve anything. I started to realize that the isolation I felt was caused by my own actions, and surprisingly I noticed that people were much friendlier and kinder when I started treating them with dignity and respect. Predominantly male bullies. As a girl who was mercilessly bullied in high school, makes me sad that most never realize or own up to their behavior. Girl bullying is awful. To be fair, Reddit has a lot more males than females. Something like 80% of Redditors are male. That's why a lot of post responses in any given sub seem to be coming from a man. Not generally a bully, just with this one kid. Like a lot of the others posting, I didn't even realize how much it was bothering him. For me, it was just a little bit of joking around. One day we were all playing a game of tag or something like that, and he deliberately set up an ambush for me. I was bigger and faster than him, so he never had a chance. I instinctively took one shot at him, hit him in the stomach. But the fact that he went so far out of his way to set up the whole encounter kind of made me realize that I was the problem here, and the fight didn't go beyond that. We didn't become best friends or anything afterwards, but I left him alone after and we seemed to be okay. As a girl, I liked playing rough with the boys in elementary school, and by playing rough, I mean kicking, hitting and punching them whenever I got the chance. This led to girls being afraid of me, and more boys keeping me company and attracting more male friends with the phrase, "If you can't stand a hit from her, then you aren't a real man." This one time, as we were playing, I threw a bottle full of water, not caring where it landed as long as it hit a boy. It hit the smallest, kindest and quietest guy in our class. He cried. I came and told him the usual. "Did it hurt that much? Here, you can hit me back." While I offered him the bottle, he shook his head and cleaned his face. "It's alright. I forgive you." It hit me so freaking hard. I kept thinking about it all day and cried when I got into my room after school. It felt gross to be me. Why did I do that? What was wrong with me? So I never hit anyone again, unless the other party agreed we would do so. I kept wrestling and doing martial arts with everyone, though I set clear limits and a safe word if it was too much. Did karma came back at me? Nah, but everything got way better since. One of the guys whom I punched the most asked me out later on, while kids from smaller grades came looking for me to deal with their bullies. I had quite the fame, so it just took a casual chat with their bullies to make them stop. As a bonus, my younger brother was never messed with because of it, which I'm very grateful for because he's the exact opposite of me at his age. Fragile, sensible and really noble. After moving on from elementary school, I never saw the quiet boy again, but I see so much of him in the way my lil bro acts, as a reminder of my wrongs and who I must aspire to be. I was the bullied guy in this story. We had our 20-year reunion a while ago, and I made an offhanded comment to a classmate when I saw him for the first time at the party. "Good to see you, Mark. You were always my favorite bully." TLDR. He ended up sobbing on my shoulder with honest to God remorse within 30 minutes. I bullied my male classmates throughout elementary school because I wanted people to think I was strong. I'm female and grew up with brothers, so everything came down to me being better than the boys. One day in 5th grade, my group of girlfriends, also bullies, turned on me and verbally and physically hurt me. I realized what it was like to be on the other side and started sticking up for the kids who were bullied instead. Yeah, my bullies won't be on here. I see them on social media. They also include my older brother, and none of them changed. I guess not everyone matures. Also, this wasn't America. It was North Africa, and to survive as a guy was to beat up others or get beaten up yourself. Not a bully, but someone who was bullied. I beat the ever-loving crap out of my bully. He used to have this habit of jumping on my back and humping me for some reason. He was a senior in high school and I was a freshman. One day I dodged and he went face first into a desk. When he was on the floor, I began to stomp on his face. I was saying something too, but I forgot what. The bullying ended after that. You gave him the ole Rafi. Realizing that bullying people doesn't make others like you, I learned relevantly fast. A semester of high school, and I apologized to the person who I bullied. After that we became best friends and kinda laugh about it. Bullying to make player like you is interesting. I've never heard that. There was a girl in my science class who was kinda a social outcast but super clever. I bullied her because 1. I was jealous at how easy she found school. 2. My friend was bullying too. When I left secondary school I grew up a lot and realized I was really nasty to her for no reason. Ended up contacting her and apologizing. She's now training to be a doctor, and I genuinely wish the best for her. Not me, but this guy who came in for tech support at my uni's library went on about how he bullied the bullies. Stopped when he realized that those guys were like that because of household issues. There was this kid much smaller than me that would constantly watch FNAF and Undertale videos. I hated the games and still hate them, but one day he drew one of the characters and I couldn't help but love the drawing. It was that good. I don't like the games, but I don't pick on anyone for liking something that I don't anymore. I was a terrible bully for most of my childhood. I never beat anyone up, but I engaged in a lot of psychological torture manipulation. I was the only black kid in my school, so to avoid being teased and singled out and harassed, I played the gang leader and teased others. I was also a lot smarter than other kids my age, so teachers loved me and I used that to my advantage a lot. I would get kids in trouble, spread rumors, break up friendships, and body shame. The worst thing I ever did. I cringe thinking about it to this day. I lied and said a little boy called me the N-word. His parents and my parents were called into a meeting with the principal and he was forced to apologize to me. I kept my cool and he lost it, and his parents eventually forced him, through tears, to apologize to me. I'm sure they punished him a lot more at home. I'm not saying this to brag. It actually haunts me still. And if that kid became a lifelong racist I couldn't blame him. It's easily the worst thing I've ever done, and I never stop thinking about it. I've taken the Jussie Smollett hoax pretty personally as well. Which brings me to the turning point. I wish it were a moment of empathy, or an intellectual revelation that brought me around to loving and ethical relations with my fellow humans. But really it was biology. I figured out I was gay in the 9th grade, and understood pretty quickly that I could not get away with teasing, manipulating, and hurting people without becoming a major target myself. So I made friends. I learned to be trustworthy and vulnerable. I developed values that prioritized kindness over power. And despite the tremendous guilt I still feel from my days as a bully, I can say easily that I'm a lot happier now. Capital I. If you know how to contact the kid that you lied about, you owe it to his family and yourself to come clean and apologize. I hate to use this phrase, but I guess I was one of the popular kids in high school, meaning I just knew a lot of people from sports and other clubs that branched out across multiple grades. From grades 9-12 I used this popularity to make some pretty relentless jokes against people I didn't like or did genuinely like. I would say outrageously offside things about people, and I unfortunately have the ability to determine what an individual's biggest insecurity is, and I'd go for that. I never physically hurt anyone, but I know I hurt a lot of feelings by saying jokes that were almost never warranted. I guess my turning point was maturing. Once I left the bubble that is high school, I realized how awful I had been to my peers without any repercussions for myself. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately is 10 or 20 years in the future when these people are gonna flip through their yearbook and see my photo and tell their spouse or kid how big of a douche I was, and you know what? They'd be absolutely right to do that. I am ashamed of who I was and have actively been trying to become a friendlier and kinder member of society. I still deal with a lot of the same insecurities I struggled with years ago, but I've realized now that my problems aren't a reason to treat others like crap. If I could do it all again, I'd do it a lot differently. I never want to be that person again. About sophomore year I realized how fricked the culture was in my school. We had a group of accepted kids. Generally, the accepted were either rich, athletic, or good looking. No in between. I was in the accepted group, and bullying anybody less than us was the norm. We had a kid in football who was so poor, he would wear the same blue jeans to practice every day. We called him Blue Jeans. He was also mentally handicapped. The older guys would frick with him constantly. A major example of this were two guys, jacked, butt naked, twerking on him in stormtrooper masks, bare man butt all in his face. Another was a friend of mine choke slamming him in practice, and Blue Jeans running crying to the locker room. I soon distanced myself from the crowd and got shunned by many. I began calling people out on their bulls. If anyone on here is being bullied, especially in high school, just remember this isn't the rest of your life. The people that bully you are nobodies and probably internally hate themselves. Just focus on you and how you want your future to be. Basically what I'm saying is, your bullies can suck your butt. Frick high school in rural Oklahoma, man. I was the girl who said what everyone was thinking, but actually what I was saying was mean and cruel and not helpful. As an adult there's so much mean stuff I said or did that surfaces when I'm trying to go to sleep. Hurt people hurt people. I came from a family situation where I was hurt, so I made sure to hurt everyone else. It took me losing a lot of friends, my one true love, and growing into an adult with frequent altercations before I was able to recognize my attitude for what it was: rotten. There wasn't one single moment but a series of small opportunities to present myself differently and be positive. I guess at a certain point I wanted to feel love instead of always feeling hurt by self-inflicted wounds. I wanted to be perceived differently, because once you establish yourself as a mean girl in high school, the people around you kind of enforce that. For me that carried on into adulthood, and I got to a point where I had to make a decision between two paths, and one was difficult and the other was significantly more loving and positive, but required me to learn to think positive thoughts. I still have to reframe my perceptions manually, but the change is sticking. Sometimes I'm shocked that people like me, because for so long I was a friend that no one really liked but was still invited to outings, like the token bully. But then I remember it's because I'm not trying to be a dong to everyone anymore. An ex told me right before dumping me that I was a huge butthole, not just to her but to people in general. I really reevaluated how I was treating others after that. Realized I had a lot of people to apologize to, but I could at least redeem myself. Maybe you should thank your ex for giving you the clarity to change your ways. She could have easily left you in the dark about your negative behaviors, but instead wanted you to understand this about yourself. It sounded like this person actually cared about you. Hamlet. Our English teacher explained what the queen meant when she said, "Methinks the lady doth protest too much." Anyways, I was notorious for picking on gay kids, which meant everyone must think I am a closeted gay overcompensating. Long story short, I gave up bullying because it was too gay. Jesus. I wish so bad every day that I could tell everyone that I picked on, that I'm so sorry for being so crappy. I was bullied myself and it made me mean. I did it. I think she noticed I had changed via social media, so when we bumped into each other, we sat and talked. I honestly thought I tormented her and felt guilty for years. She said she knew I was a decent person just dealing with raging teenager hormones, and she was proud I turned into a decent person. I wanted to cry with relief. I'm not sure I was much of a bully, but I was kind of in butthole when I was a kid. Had no problem picking on other kids. In my circle of friends when I was in 5th grade there was one who I picked on and teased a lot. Once I got him so mad he called me out for a fight after school. So we fought in the breezeway by the school. It was mostly lame kid stuff, grappling and crap talk. At one point he had me in a sort of headlock and I reached my arm over and punched him in the face. Then twisted out of the hold, pinned him on the ground. He didn't submit until one of the other kids found some dog crap and stuck it under his face. Anyway, that whole thing was way beyond what I ever wanted. The feeling of my fist on his face. I didn't ever want to do that again to anyone, and I respected him a lot for not putting up with my crap, and for how long he held out. I did a lot of thinking and changed how I treated people, and I never got into a physical fight with anyone after that. In his case, I think he took it different. Started lifting weights and getting strong. We made up and stayed in the same circle of friends. And by 8th grade he was pretty bulked up and could have kicked my butt anytime if he wanted. But we got along. One of my best friends. How the frick do you type that first paragraph and still not think you were that much of a bully? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.